The offseason is upon us, and UCF has to hit the portal hard, but do they have enough money to spend?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Andrew Gluchov, senior writer at UCFKnightZone.com to talk a little UCF football here. It feels like this is our first official show of the offseason, Andrew. UCF has got to make some moves in the portal. So over the next few days, we're going to be hearing about kids announcing that they're hitting the portal. We covered that on some previous shows last week. We're going to continue to drop news about kids hitting the portal and guys returning this week. But either way, you're going to have to spend money once you get into that portal. Does UCF have what it needs to go out and compete? We'll talk about that in our first segment. In our next segment, we're going to talk about the biggest needs that they have in the portal. And then they declared a bowl invite here at 5 wins. They got invited to a bowl game and said, no, thank you. So we'll talk about that in our last segment. Let's start at the top. You and I have covered this cap extensively. And UCF tried their hardest to fill those coffers as much as they could. But we're hearing Texas Tech, who is, sitting on top of the world in the Big 12 right now and even got a bye here. Headed into the college football playoff. They spent $30 million or more on the roster that got them into that place. Talk to me, Andrew, about UCF and the spending that they need to do in the portal. And Scott Frost, really his first full offseason. I'm calling it his first full offseason because in that first year after you get hired, like that recruiting class is just what you can make of it. In the short amount of time you have, especially with early signing day, it's almost impossible to sign the class you want. But they should have a plan and a strategy going into this portal season to pick up the right guys to fit their system. Looks like they're going to be looking for a quarterback again here in the portal. Do they have the money to spend, though? You need $1 million to get a guy quarterback that's really a guy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. This is the first full off season. Especially the fact that when a coach leaves, it basically the rules encourage players to go elsewhere. It doesn't matter when the new coach is hired, they have a chance to leave, and UCF had to rebuild their roster almost from scratch. They brought in over 70 new players. So I mean, that's quite a haul right there. And some work out, some don't. And there's a number of guys hitting the portal. But the truth is UCF's a hard nut to crack. And what I'm getting at is, and you can look elsewhere, like Matt Brown has his extra points. And he mentions a few schools that it's impossible to get information out of. UCF is one of them. Trying to use a Freedom of Information Act request to get really any relevant information from UCF is, you might as well just be talking to a wall. In fact, the wall would be, more helpful.
Okay.
So where I'm getting at this is Terry Mohajir saying one thing, but the kind of the scuttle you hear is something very different. He's talking about, we've got the 20 mil and all this, but the numbers don't seem to support that. The spending does not seem to support that. It's more like a fraction, like $5-6 million. UCF does not have a sugar daddy like Michigan State does, who just got a $400 million infusion. I mean, maybe they will over time, but they certainly don't now. They don't have the money that Texas Tech is bringing in, or Houston. They just don't have that kind of sugar daddy yet when it comes to the college football world. But the reason why I'm bringing up, how it's a tough nut to crack, they actually get to hide behind a state statute to prevent them having to release any information. The only thing that UCF releases is the stuff UCF really wants to release and a few other little tidbits that they're required to have available. but stuff like apparel contracts, coaching details that they just choose not to release. They don't have to. And it actually comes back to a state statute. And I just want to read it real quick because this is something that's been the bane of my existence when it comes to trying to get anything out of UCF. And I'd love to see this go away. And it's state statute 1004.28, part 5D. And I'm going to read it to you verbatim real quick. Other than the auditor's report, management letter, any records related to the expenditure of state funds, and any financial records related to the expenditure of private funds for travel, all records of the organization, and any supplemental data requested by the Board of Governors, the University Board of Trustees, the Auditor General, and the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability shall be confidential and exempt from State Statute 119.071, which is part of the Information Act request. This statute is about direct support organizations, which is what UCF Athletics is. It's a direct support organization. So they're able to hide behind this state statute, and thus you can hear Terry Mohajir say all this stuff, but they don't have to show you anything to show that he's actually telling you the truth.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we're going to know. We're going to know by the players that you go out and get, because the market is kind of tells on itself here, right? You can say you're paying a guy X amount, but we know what is being done out there. If you remember what happened with Nico at Tennessee last offseason, where I think they were demanding something like $4 million from Tennessee. He was already making 2.5, and Tennessee just said, no,
take a hike.
No thanks, right? And not only did he not get the $4 million he was asking for, he ended up at a worse school making less money in a state where the taxes dictate that money was going to be like it was financially, it was kind of a disaster for him, really. Like,
a little bit of FAFO right there.
Yeah, right. I mean, he ended up making 1.7 from UCLA, so you're in a worse situation on a losing team, paying California taxes. It was important for the rest of college football that Tennessee pushed back on that. Look, I think Nico's a fantastic quarterback. They clearly were able to kind of replicate what he was able to do. They just moved on. They were a 9-1 team without him. So I hear everybody when they say, look, man, I'm happy that players are getting paid, but if you're UCF, you've got to find, I think, a medium between spending and talent evaluation and development. I still think you need to lean hard into finding the right guys that fit your system. Sometimes those aren't the guys that you have to pay a lot of money for, but they will be the guys in 2 years that become stars that you will pay a lot of money 2 years from now, after you've developed them and they become who they're going to be. But overspending on unproven rookies is a problem that the NFL had, that they had to cure about 15 years ago. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to that league, was that they stopped teams and organizations from spending all their money on unproven talent. And there was no money left in free agency for proven veterans. I think college football is going to face the same thing here. Either way, if you're UCF, I think the bar has been set. You've got to be, if you want to compete, you're going to need a roster somewhere in the $15 to $18 million range. Based on the number. Yeah, but I don't think you need to spend $30 million like Texas Tech did.
I understand what Texas Tech did. Texas Tech, because there was no alpha dog in the conference, and they never won a Big 12 conference championship. So they just kind of went broke. And this was the perfect time to do it because the new system hadn't been in place yet. So, I mean, I understand where Texas Tech came from, and they definitely reaped the benefits here. And they're looking great doing it. And they're doing good for the conference by doing this because, it's if they go win a national title, it makes Big 12 look good. But boy, did it cost a pretty penny.
Yeah, for sure. Look, let's get to our break. And when we come back, I want to talk about what exactly UCF is going to be spending that money on. What are the biggest needs in the portal? I asked this of our guy, James. I want to ask Andrew this question as well. We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Game Time, the best place to land tickets to your favorite game. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time is so clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets at the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Prices include fees up front, which I love. No last second surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Biggest areas of need in the portal. What we kind of talked about on Friday was offensive line. You got to fix your offensive line. And
Big time.
There's going to be some departures there. It's kind of the obvious thing. But, you know, we learned last week Tayven Jackson is not going to return. Not a shock there. Jacurri Brown also not going to return. Cam Fancher, I'm not sure what he's doing. I think maybe is he out of eligibility? He might be out of eligibility.
I do have an answer for Cam Fancher. He is being kept around. I think he's applying for something, but he's basically going to be like almost like a player manager.
Okay.
They're keeping him for very cheap. He knows this is the end of the line, and he's going to be working towards becoming a grad assistant.
There you
he's
go.
Start to transition into coaching. So he's going to be like your emergency guy. He's going to be around, but the truth is he's probably going to be more of a clipboard holder, learning the ropes of coaching, than really be more of an active player.
Well, Myles Montgomery
he's going to be
last year. What's UCF's biggest area of need in the portal? Or, you know, it could be multiple, but, you know, talk to me. It feels like a lot of the need is going to be on offense.
Yeah. You know, obviously they're going to look for one quarterback in the portal. You know, you've got a lot of youth, you know, below, but the key is you need a veteran guy who can really bridge from, you know, current to, you know, to Rocco Marriott, who's, you know, kind of the heir apparent at this juncture to be the next big thing at UCF. And then we talked about before what, you know, the offensive line. Quarterback's your most expensive player. What's your second most expensive player group? Offensive line. Because that area is so hard to find good talent. You can find size, but you need size with speed and agility. Not easily done. And a lot of times it's just a mishmash of just pieces thrown together and hoping it works when it comes to recruiting from the portal. Because again, you're stuck with what's available. And UCF has a problem here in the fact that unlike the rest of the Big 12, which recruits in, you know, the Great Plains states and the Midwest and that area where you get those big corn-fed boys up front in the trenches, you don't get that in Orlando, and it showed. You know, UCF's offensive line has struggled mightily in the Big 12. They need to find a way to attract talent, you know, to Orlando, and the best way to do it is to waive the almighty dollar. But we know that, you know, same thing with the coaching search last year. UCF, when it was part of the American, big fish, small pond, very attractive. As part of the Big 12, everyone knows they're looking up. And so it's that much harder to bring in talent and bring in, you know, those coaches that you want and the staff and all those things that make you, you know, a contender. Can you become one? Yeah, but it's a little tougher. Once you get there, it's easier to maintain it. But you got to break the ceiling and get through. That's where, you know, where like Houston and Cincinnati, they were able to take advantage of already being in the footprint the conference. West Virginia is nearby to Cincinnati. Obviously, Texas, Houston's in the middle of Texas. They've got the footprint. UCF's on an island, and that has offered some opportunities, from like a weather standpoint, but it offers a lot of challenges when it comes to bringing in the right kind of talent. Offensive line seems to be the one that struggles the most when it comes to being able to bring in the right kind of talent.
I couldn't agree with you more. Look, you need offensive line, and you need, again, you're going to have to reload the quarterback room for a second year straight, right? Like they kind of cleaned it out when he came in. Now it's happening again, and you need viable quarterback play. We know about the youngster that's coming in, Rocco Marriott. They ran off Kane Archer for Rocco. Presumably he is the better quarterback. Kane Archer, I really liked Kane Archer.
I feel bad for Kane. I liked him. I know Kane got dogged because of his competition. And he's a little bit smaller than Rocco.
Yeah.
Rocco's a big guy. But I do want to point out real quick, Mike, Tayven Jackson wanted to come back. They basically told him,
he didn't play well enough to guarantee him a job.
Not for the money they paid for him.
Yeah,
I mean, he would have to take up a substantial cut.
With Tayven, I like being honest with kids about whether or not they have a future here, so they have a chance to go test the market or find another home. But don't string them along if you don't plan on playing them. Once the clock starts rolling on those eligible years, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to say, for depth purposes, try to keep them around. Just, go find your guys, man. The portal's open. You can find multiple quarterbacks here. But I think that he got more than a fair shot to really solidify himself as the incumbent in the league going into next year. And he never really shut the door on that possibility with anything that he did this year. Now, I know it wasn't a perfect situation around him. I know offensive line play wasn't great, but certainly you cannot say that he did not get an opportunity to be UCF's guy in 2026 by, showing the type of play that would say, hey, this is our guy going into next year, and we're going to get some pieces to back him up. He got a shot. He got a better shot than most guys get.
It didn't work out.
It didn't work out. Yeah, it definitely didn't work out. Look, UCF did better than last year by one game. And I would say that there were some games that they left on the table, even for those like tweener games where, the competition wasn't so much better than them. They just couldn't win any of them, literally any of those tweener games. But they played well enough to be in a position to get a bowl invite. So we'll talk about that bowl invite here next on Locked On UCF. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Omaha Stakes. The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they'll actually love. When you want both handled in one move, Omaha Stakes is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your front door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahastakes.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. I love how easy it is to gift something. Everybody's going to love. Who doesn't love a great steak? This is America, baby, and we love steaks, and Omaha Steaks is delivering them right to your front door. Holiday magic made easy. Order by 6 p.m. Eastern, and it ships the same day, so you can make sure you get that great steak on time this holidays. Save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahastakes.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale, and for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahastakes.com. Code COLLEGE. UCF got an invitation to the Dukes Mayo Bowl. And they said, yeah, no, thank you. We're good. Every once in a while, a 5-win team gets an opportunity to play in a bowl game when certain things happen in front of them and certain criteria are met. We know that some people declined the opportunity for it to fall to UCF, so they weren't the only ones to decline. we kind of hit on this last week. You were traveling last week, so you didn't get to weigh in on some of this stuff. Should UCF have the question we asked was, should UCF get invited to a bowl? Would they accept? And we now have the answer. The answer is no. Why decline this bowl invite? Are they missing an opportunity here to get some extra football in and evaluate, or do you just have too much going on trying to, again, overhaul your roster again to be distracted by a bowl game right
now? No, I think it's a case of bad timing. Here's the thing: Kansas State, Iowa State, and later Notre Dame declined their going to a bowl game late in the process. Well, Kansas State was ahead of them all. But the Iowa State a little bit later, and then Notre Dame was today, Sunday. And the thing is, by this point, UCF classes are done. They sent their players home. So at this point, it would be difficult to bring them back and try to do anything. If this was known as a real possibility a week ago, which it wasn't. Like, I remember writing in my articles how it's not over, it's essentially over, but it's not officially over. And I got a lot of poo-poos for it because as of last Saturday, all the criteria was met that no 5 and 7 team would get it. Well, that was in the old system. Now we're back to where bowl games are exhibition games, and the bowl system is dying. And we're seeing it happen in real time, where you have multiple teams, and this is just wild. Iowa State. All right, let's start with Kansas State. Kansas State says no. Their coach retired. And then the players decided no. Then Iowa State, they lose their coach. They decide no. And then Notre Dame, and this is not the first time Notre Dame has said no to a bowl game. They did it back 8-9 years ago. I think it was 2016. They did the same thing where they turned, they missed out on the playoffs, and then they said no thank you to a bowl game. Truth is, it's Notre Dame. They don't need to do anything. But message loud and clear, there is something very wrong with system. And I read online that in the case of Notre Dame, in the new system starting next year, if they are in the top 12, they are in no matter what. So if that applied this year, they would have been in, Miami would have been out. But because that didn't carry in, that they decided to stay home. Because this all happened so late, I mean, it would have taken a lot of work to get everyone back. And then you have a bunch of players who have already left, not thinking that there was going to be a bowl game opportunity. And technically, once you enter the portal, you're out of the program. So it would take the school and the player to agree to come back to be able to. So, I mean, it would become a logistical nightmare for UCF at this point. They said no, thank you. Other schools that were 5 and 7 said no, thank you. It ended up going down to Mississippi State, who was a number of schools down the list as far as the rankings in the academic progress report. That end up taking that bowl game. But it would have been cool for UCF to play for the Dukes Mayo Bowl. Yeah, but logistically, did it make a lot of sense? No.
Yeah. Look, I would have liked to have seen some more UCF football, but given what's happening here, I certainly understand the decision to turn down the invite here. Look, you got to make moves this offseason. That does not include playing in a game that means absolutely nothing here just for the entertainment of us, the fans. But hopefully UCF is in a position next year where they don't have to turn down a bowl invite. They will be playing in a bowl game because they won more than 6 games.
Because if they turn it down, they'll get fined.
Yes, right.
In Kansas State, where they were each fined $500,000 by the conference for turning down the bowl games. UCF's not going to get fined. They have a legitimate reason to say no because they were not bowl eligible to begin with, and so they hey, there was nothing that said we were going to play, so we sent everybody home. They're not going to get fined $500,000. But if they win 6 wins and decide to turn a bowl game down, Big 12 is going to fine them. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. You know what else is a big deal? Me and you right here on Locked On UCF, talking UCF football, guys. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF. Andrew, I want to thank you for joining me on today's show, guys. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. As I mentioned, we got lots going on this offseason. We're here to cover every single moment. We'll see you guys next time right here at Locked On UCF.